Hey guys, Krootman here, and it's been talked about quite a bit that in order to make a lot of money or good money GPU mining, you have to be willing to spec mine. Myself and plenty of other YouTubers have talked about this, and we've shown you the profits over the last few months and the past year, and basically have said that the real money is in spec mining. Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about something that I don't think is widely spoken about. And that is when you shouldn't spec mine and when it may not make sense for you in your situation. If you watch my stream today, you know that I've been kind of negative about GPU mining as of late. And you can't blame me. I think a lot of people are negative about it sometimes. And it goes in ebbs and flows. Sometimes you're really, really positive about GPU mining. The last 30 days honestly have been fantastic for GPU mining, thanks to Zealous. And there are some times where you're just down about it. I felt like this was a good time to talk about when you shouldn't spec mine. Now, this video is brought to you by my channel, Krootman Tech and Mining, where you can find all of your mining needs, your gaming needs. I go over I have installation guides on here. I give you my opinion on GPUs for gaming, for mining. I do a little bit of ASIC content. I kind of bridge everything. So thank you again for watching this video. Please make sure you like and sub to my channel. I am so very close to hitting 4,000 channel subs, and it really, really helps. So thanks again, and let's get back to the video. Now, if you guys are familiar with bitcointalk.org, cryptocurrency forum in general, and this is where a lot of people go to look for the next big coin. The next coin that you can jump on early, spec mine, and make a lot of money. Now, you can just scroll around and you can see for every 10 of these posts, maybe one of these is actually profitable to mine. So it's generally a big risk, but usually it's worth it in the majority of the times. Well, I want to go over 3 times where I spec mined or didn't spec mine, and how it either bit me in the butt or it just wasn't worth it, and why it wasn't worth it. Just because a coin is out early and you see people mining it doesn't mean it makes sense for you to mine it. So in this video, I'm going to present 3 different stories about why I either mined or didn't spec mine a coin and how it didn't work out for me. And each example will be different. Some of these examples you will have more control over than others, but I think it's important to share this with the crypto mining community and the GPU mining community as a whole. So the first one I want to start out with is PubDAG. So let me tell you my spec mining experience with PubDAG. Okay, so the dates may not be 100% accurate, but it will do to get my point across. So this came out about a week-ish before Memorial Day weekend. So I heard about PubDAG, and some of my buddies were mining it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Why not? I'll jump on it. So I jumped on PubDAG day 2, and I jumped on it with 4 rigs. Basically 1660 Super rig, my 3060 Ti rig, and 2 3070 rigs. Now, when I jumped on it and I triple mined Ironfish and Ergo with it because it's just a Jasper coin fork, so all the infrastructure is already in place, and I like to hedge my bets because even though I play in this space, I'm not the most risky person. So I mine it for 48. I think I mined it for about 2 to 2.5 days. I noticed the hash rate wasn't climbing and Zell profits were still pretty strong. So I just moved back to Zell. I was like, all right, I got my bag. It's fine. I think I had about 500,000 of it. I'm like, all right, let's see how it goes. Keep in mind, this is, say, 5 days to go before I had to leave for Memorial Day weekend. I was going on a trip with my family. Usually a Caspa fork, previous forks, it usually takes between 5 to 7 days, 4 to 7 days to list on an exchange, whether it's XGigiX, I can't pronounce it, or Trade Ogre, right? So I was like, okay, so I give myself about 3 to 4 days buffer for it to list. And I thought I was okay. So 3 to 4 days pass, and it doesn't list. So I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't mine more of it, but hopefully this doesn't list when I'm gone this weekend. So, I leave, and I leave on that Thursday. And of course, when I leave, 3 hours later, it lists on an exchange. Now, the point of mining to a VM, which is what everybody should be mining to on these new speculative coins, because you just never know what's on the software. The point is that you can't access it from anywhere but that computer. So I have no way of moving this money to an exchange. So PubDAG list for quite a bit, right? So my PubDAG, I think, was worth $1,000 if I sold it right at listing. Now, thankfully, when I mined it, it was worth nothing. So as far as tax purposes go, the only thing I was going to have to report was the profits on it, thankfully. Well, I couldn't sell it at 1,000, and then the price tanked, of course, and then it tanked and went back up. So, if you played buy and sell the dip that first few hours, you did pretty well. By the time I got home, my pub dag was worth $60. And you can see it's worth now, if I would have held it, even less. It's worth $15. Basically, at $60, it was worth the same as Zealous. Honestly, like it was at that. So I didn't even sell. Actually, I ended up holding it. So I have it now, and it's worth $15. So I lost some money on it. Now, thankfully, I mined it in conjunction with Zill and Iron, so the losses aren't that bad. In this instance, I actually lost money. And I'm not going to cancel a trip or change a trip around because of, a coin that could be worth nothing when it lists. So the point is, if you're going on a trip with family or friends or anything, anywhere around when you think a coin could potentially hit an exchange, don't mine it. Just skip it. It's not for you. Now, the next one, even though it turned out to be pretty successful, and I have done very, very well in Zealous, when Zealous first launched, and I knew about it day one, it had a Linux-only miner, and you could only mine it in Linux. So, like, Windows VLANs wouldn't work. So, at the time, I did not have our Linux VLAN. And number two, I didn't trust, some random miner that I was afraid it could, the overclocks could reset and it could cook my GPUs. I turned out to be wrong at the time, and I will explain that at the end of the story. But at the time, my reasoning, I felt was sound. I didn't really know Linux too well to set up a VLAN. That's changed since then, and I didn't want to do it. And I mostly didn't trust the miner. I was worried that my overclocks would unseat themselves and something could happen and damage my hardware. And I also didn't know if it was a core algorithm or a memory algorithm, and I wasn't sure how it would interact. I wasn't sure how much power I would use, and at the time, my power usage, triple mining, I was running pretty close to the 80% rule, and I didn't want to mess with it. That is a valid point on why you shouldn't triple mine. Looking back, I honestly should have had a Linux VLAN set up, and I could have just used NVTool to set the overclocks and it would have been fine. But what I'm getting at is, if you don't feel comfortable with something and you're worried in any way, whether you're right or you're wrong, like I said, in this example, I was actually wrong and I did learn from it, you shouldn't do it. You could have did what I did and waited till it was pool mineable, and you still made out great. Now, you didn't make out nearly as well as everybody who spec mined it, and that's the point. But because the profitability calculators were broke so long, I made bank on this for a month. Again, I did maybe 40% as well as everybody else did on it, but I still did really well. And in the future, it helped me open up my comfort zone where I'm comfortable more with Linux in terms of a VLAN. But again, let me reiterate, if you don't feel comfortable with a certain operating system or doing certain things, don't do it. One of the more complicated spec mines that we've seen in, and that's probably why so many people made so much money on it. But again, still, if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. So while I learned a valuable lesson from this, if you're still like, I'm still never going to learn Linux, I don't want to learn Linux, then this wasn't for you, and it was good that you didn't do it. Now, finally, the third one is a little different. The first one was something that was totally out of your control. You had a trip and you weren't going to be able to make the listing of the coin. And then the second one was totally in your control, whether or not you wanted to learn a totally new operating system. This one is a little bit of both, right? So when Caspa Classic went live on spec mining, they were trying to use a different algorithm, an untrusted miner, and they had crashes and there were issues and people thought there were viruses, and it was one I just totally avoided. They kind of fixed it towards the later half of, like right before it went live. They kind of got a new miner together and they got their ish together a little more, and it made it worth it for some people. Like basically if you got in, you mined it and you dumped it. But I did not like the way it was going in the beginning. There was too much wrong in the beginning. Kept on Pyrum when they had stuff wrong. I felt like the reason that they changed their algorithm was to kick the ASICs off. And I did pretty well on Pyrum when it dropped. But Caspa Classic, I didn't trust, and I didn't like the way it was releasing, and it just felt wrong to me. So it was a mix of like, stuff was wrong with the miner, and it felt wrong, and I didn't mind it, and I don't regret missing out on it. There was a very, very brief window where you could have made money, but again, if you don't feel comfortable, you don't do it. And, you know, I honestly didn't really miss out that much on Caspa Classic because the other stuff I was mining was pretty good. Essentially what I'm getting at with these 3 stories, some of them have more information than the rest, and I'm not trying to go too in depth because I just want to give you the basics on, you know, there are plenty of reasons why it is okay to not spec mine a coin. Whether, like I said, whether you're in control of the situation, you're not in control of the situation, or you just don't trust it. So when in doubt, don't spec mine it. And honestly, you're going to be okay. Some of these turn out to be nothing. I can't tell you how many coins that I've spec mined where I basically made the same as I didn't spec mine. You know, there's going to be a miss. For every hit, there's going to be quite a few misses. So you kind of just have to do your homework. You have to feel comfortable with what you're doing. And frankly, if you're not in a mood to spec mine something, just don't do it. It's okay, guys. We'll leave you with this, though. The harder it is to spec mine in the case of something like Zealous, the more profitable it is going to be, in my humble opinion. So with that in mind, thank you again for watching this video. Remember, if you're not comfortable, don't spec mine it. You'll be okay. Everything will be okay. So thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe for more crypto mining and GPU mining content. Krootman out.